Welcome to Audio Able, an extension of our blog at Able United. We know there are a lot of resources available, and navigating them can be overwhelming. So we created this series to help you. We'll take a deeper dive into the important issues and topics affecting the disability community. We'll also get to hear from guest speakers who serve or represent individuals with varying disabilities and experts on available resources. We hope you'll spend some time with us to listen in. Now, let's get right to it. We're back with another episode of Audio Able, and today we're discussing Family Café. For those of you who aren't familiar with Family Café, it is the largest statewide cross-disability event in the nation. And since 1998, the annual Family Café has brought Floridians with all types of disabilities together for 3 whole days of information, training, and networking. Celebrating its 25th anniversary, Family Café offers individual breakout sessions, a packed exhibit hall with dozens and dozens of vendors, and a series of special events, my personal favorite actually being the annual duck race. We're joined by Jeremy Countryman, Vice President of Family Café, to give us the rundown on everything that you need to know about this year's event. Jeremy, it's so good to be with you.
Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Of course. So now I've represented Able United at Family Café for the past 5 years, and it is one of my most favorite weekends of the year. But I'm always so surprised when I meet someone who hasn't heard about this incredible event. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Family Café came to be?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because, you run across a lot of organizations and events that are disability specific and are sort of run by organizations of different types. The thing that makes the Family Café unique is that it was completely grassroots from the beginning. Our founder, Lori Fahey, had a daughter with CP, and she had the experience of going around to various offices, resources, state agencies, trying to get questions asked about how to access the service delivery system. Right. When you are a parent and all of a sudden you're thrust into this world, you have a lot of questions and you don't necessarily know who to ask. And so that experience led her to the idea of creating this event with the notion that it would be a single location where you would bring all of the resources together, the agencies that serve people with disabilities, different kinds of nonprofit organizations, service providers, all that information in one place, and then bring all the families into that place, create a family-friendly environment where people could self-select what resources were most relevant to them, and do so in an environment that was really comfortable for them, where they could network with other families that are walking the same walk that they are on, and build that sense of community and connection while simultaneously identifying what resources fit them. And so at the beginning, it was not a certainty that it would take off or that the idea would really work. And I think to everybody's surprise, that first event that was all the way back in June of 1999, attracted a lot of people. There were more than 1,000 people for this thing that had never happened before. And it's snowballed and gained momentum ever since then. So, it grew out of people who were living the disability family experience, recognizing that they needed a way to identify the resources that were necessary for them and their children to thrive in the community. And it just drew people in and has grown since then. But the whole idea behind the thing from the beginning was really that kind of family-friendly kitchen table conversation, which is part of why the organization has the name it does.
The Family Café.
Yes. Some people don't know it's actually an acronym as well for collaboration, advocacy, friendship, and empowerment. So I always have to throw that in because people say, why is it called cafe? So it works on both levels.
It does. You learn something new every day. I did not know that.
Yeah, there you go. It's worth your time having me on here already.
Exactly. Okay, so the big anniversary year, 25.
Yes.
25 years. It's incredible. So you've talked a little bit about this, but how would you really say that Family Café has evolved since that first event?
Well, it's evolved in multiple ways. It's grown in size. That first one had about 1,200 people registered for it. The largest one we had in 2019 before the pandemic, it was close to 15,000 people registered. So the most obvious answer is it's gotten a lot bigger, but it's also grown in terms of the different sort of add-on activities and things going on at the event that weren't there at the beginning. We have, in addition to sort of the backbone of the event, which is, all these breakout sessions on a wide range of disability topics and keynotes, one on each day of the 3 days of the event. And of course, the Governor's Summit on Disabilities, which is an opportunity for people to dialogue with the policymakers who are impacting their lives so much. We've also had the exhibit hall. That's grown over the years. It's now includes an adaptive recreation portion. We've added a book fair as part of the event. We have an employment expo in that exhibit hall. You were mentioning the duck race earlier as one of your favorite things.
It
We have
is.
a partnership with an organization called Sportsability about adaptive recreation. And so a lot of that stuff has been woven in. We have self-advocate entertainment that's been sort of woven in. So instead of having nothing going on in those breaks between sessions, you have performances. So it's almost like, I don't know, it's like every year you put a little bit something extra, something new, something that hasn't been there previously into it. So, if you look at what it looked like in its first year versus what it looks like in its 25th year, there's just a lot more to it. There's a lot more going on in every given time slot. There are more breakout sessions, and there are also more options about sort of activities and ways to be engaged that weren't necessarily there at the beginning. So it's been exciting to watch it evolve and see how every year we are able to sit down and think, oh, what new aspects could we bring to the event that will enhance people's experience, make it more accessible, give people more options of things to do when they're on site. So it's grown both in its scope and its size.
That's right. And it's really even grown in the 5 years that I've been. You guys are, to your point, always adding something new, something, a little bit different to make sure that you're providing, resources for all different types of disabilities and, individuals within their own unique journey. So I love that about Family Cafe. But 25 years, what can people expect this year? Is there anything that you can tease for the upcoming event in June?
Well, sure, of course. It's going to be obviously a big landmark for us to reach 25 years. So we're really trying to make an effort to highlight how we've grown and the sort of level we've reached, and also look towards the future. So there's going to be a lot of it that's going to be familiar. We are going to have the 200 plus breakout sessions. There's a number of sessions that are in tracks addressing specific topics. We have some great keynote speakers coming to the event. They include Maysoon Zaid, who's a comedian with a disability. She actually did one of our keynotes in our pandemic year, so she didn't actually get to come to the event. So we thought, oh, maybe we should bring her
back
in front of a live audience this time. We have a couple of friends who give us a national perspective on disability issues coming down from Washington, D.C., Maria Town and Rebecca Coakley. And then we have an Instagram personality with a disability, Kia Brown. We always try to do something that's kind of, a little bit more hip if we possibly can. So we're trying to fill that lane there. And of course, we have the Governor's Summit on Disabilities, as we have every year. So that part will be familiar. We have a sensory room, which we've kind of evolved over the last few years. And then we're also going to have a room dedicated to transition age youth. That's going to be a new part of the event that we haven't had previously.
So important.
It's going to be, as it always is, a combination of familiar. If you've been before, the format's going to be similar, but we're trying to really take an opportunity to look back at the road we've come and add things new to it at the same time. So one thing that we've done that actually started at last year's event that I'm pretty excited about is we asked people to share memories with us and sort of let us know what the event and the organization has meant to them, and especially people who have been coming for many years.
Yeah.
And so we're putting together a little sort of commemorative booklet that's all the registry, everyone who signs up is going to get a copy of when they register there on site, when they show up at the conference registration desk. So that'll be really cool too. So, just looking forward to celebrating 25 years. I think the people who were here on the first day couldn't have imagined what it would become a quarter century later. So it's a major accomplishment and something we want to recognize, but we also want to make sure we're keeping our focus on the future and thinking about what can we do to make our communities more inclusive, help people with disabilities thrive across the state of Florida. So we're going to be looking back and looking forward at the same time.
It's a great perspective. Okay, so now for those that are listening into this episode, there's no registration fee for individuals with disabilities or their family members and caregivers.
Yes, that's correct.
But I want you to cover a little bit on the financial assistance piece that's specifically, complimentary accommodations at the hotel. Can you kind of walk us through how registrants can apply for this?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of these things when you've been doing something for so long, you forget what it's like for somebody who's not familiar with it. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, one of the first things I want people to know is there is no registration fee for individuals with disabilities and their families. So that means there's no real barrier to entry, which is something we believe strongly. And if somebody decides the day before that they're interested in coming, you can show up, go to the on-site registration, and it doesn't cost you anything. So in addition to that, we also have this financial assistance program. And the point of that is to pay for the hotel stay for as many families as we can fit within our budget. The way to apply, it's very simple. When you go to our website, which is familycafe.net, and you visit that registration form, there's just a box on there where you check, where you said like financial assistance. You have to say either for Saturday only or both nights, Friday and Saturday. And then as long as you're registered before April 1st, you get put into a lottery, essentially. So what we do is we take everybody who has registered between Valentine's Day, when the online registration opens, and April 1st. We export all of that. We do a lottery to put it in a random number order, and then we pay for the hotel rooms for as many people as we could possibly afford within our budget. So not only is the whole thing free, you also have a fairly decent chance of getting free accommodation as well. And, it used to be back in the day, you're talking about things that have changed. This is a little bit behind the curtains, but when we started, it was first come, first serve. The thing would open on Valentine's Day. And when I first started working here, it was sort of a tradition that at 9:00 on February 14th, the website would crash and things like that would happen. That was always very exciting. So we decided it was more fair and made more sense to do it by a lottery. We've done it that way for several years. So whether you are there at 9:00 in the morning on February 14th, or whether you're the last person to ask for it on March 31st, your odds of being selected are the same. So don't panic if it's February 15th and you haven't done it yet. You're still good. You have a whole 6-week window there.
That's right. Okay, so we've talked about, individuals who want to come and register and, just be attendees, but I also want to touch a little bit on, advocacy organizations and, state agencies, or even just, general volunteers. How can people get involved? How can, they make sure that they are there at Family Cafe?
Well, depending on where you're coming from and sort of what your role is, there are a lot of ways to participate. The first thing I would highlight is our exhibit hall. Has more than 200 vendor booths in it, and it's extraordinarily well trafficked. I think if you are an organization that is looking to reach the audience of individuals with disabilities and their families, there is no better way to access that number of people in that demographic in person in one time and place. So
That's right.
if you're thinking, oh, does it make sense for my organization to be part of that exhibit hall? I don't think you're going to find a better way to get in front of that number of families anywhere in the state of Florida. So if you visit our website, the page about the annual Family Cafe, there's an item there about the exhibit hall. If you're interested in exhibiting, just complete the form, or you want to give us a call or send us an email. If you have any questions about it, please do that. If you're an individual, there are also a lot of ways to get involved and support the event. When you do that online registration, there's a section there where we ask about volunteers. So there are 3 real main areas where we need volunteers. One is what we call bag stuffing, which as the name implies, when you show up at the event, you get a conference bag with a program and some other materials in it. We have a large group of volunteers that comes together on the Thursday evening before the event starts to help us collate all that stuff. It takes a few hours, and it could not be done if it weren't for, dozens and dozens of people joining us. So if you're on site and would like to do that, we would love to have your help. Another place people can volunteer is at the registration desk. That's actually staffed by volunteers. I don't want to give too much away, but if you came to our office here, you would realize there are only 5 people that work here. So you couldn't really staff all these things if you only had 5 people doing everything, right? So conference registration desk is a great opportunity to volunteer. We also ask for people to be room monitors, and a room monitor is not somebody that's, giving out detention, as the name might sound, but it's basically people who stand in the hallways and direct people around in the breaks between sessions. If somebody's looking for a particular room or a particular session, you help with, getting them navigated to where they need to go. And that's a great opportunity to volunteer because you get to have a lot of, informal chats, and you might run into somebody who's from the same town as you or is dealing with the same disability dynamic that you are. So it's a great way to interact with people. And then the other thing that we always are open to are language interpreters. So we're in a deeply multilingual state here in Florida, and so we're always looking for people who are willing to donate a little bit of time, especially if they speak Spanish and English fluently. So if you are in that category, we'd love to have you as a volunteer as well. And if you want to take advantage of the opportunity to volunteer, that's there on the registration form as well. That's another box you can check easily. So the whole thing is in one piece: the financial assistance, the volunteering, and the event registration. It's all one form.
Now, do all the volunteers get the chef jacket?
Sadly, no. Yeah, keeping with our whole cafe, if you haven't been there, keeping with our whole cafe theme, all of the staff wear chef jackets at the event, and our board members too. So that's how you can pick out who is either a board member or an employee of the Family Cafe. Will be wearing red chef coats. But the volunteers, the room monitors, do get aprons though. So that's pretty cool, right?
Ooh, that is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, note to self. If I want one of those, I'm gonna have to.
You never know when you're gonna make a mess, so it's good to wear an apron just in case.
It's so true. So true. Well, I always love closing with this question. If listeners were to take just one thing away from our conversation, what would it be?
That's a tough one because I think we covered some of those things, but I guess it would be this. If you have not been to this event before, when you show up there, it will blow your mind.
It will.
I've worked here for 18 years now, and I remember my first annual Family Cafe. It was the 7th one in 2005. And I kind of understood what was going to happen, on paper. I was like, oh, this is a big conference. All these people with disabilities show up there. You can understand that intellectually, right? But when you walk into that space and you see that number of people with disabilities and their families in one place at one time, it's really moving and it's really shocking in a way. I think in our daily lives, when we're out in public doing our routines, you might see a person with a disability, you might not. But if you do, those people are always in the vast minority. When you come to the annual Family Cafe, you're entering a space where disability and the disability experience is the norm.
Right.
And that's what really makes it different and what makes it special. And I think it's also what makes it so valuable to the people who come back year after year after year. Most of your daily life, if you're a person living with a disability or a caregiver, family member, you feel like you're the person that has this unique situation that has unique challenges attached to it. You're different. When you come to the annual Family Cafe and you walk into that space, you're part of a larger Family Cafe family where we're all living that experience. And as much as the knowledge and information and training and nuts and bolts stuff is valuable, that sense of community and togetherness and solidarity across the disability community that you get when you're in that space, that's the thing that's unique about it. And I think that's the reason people should consider being there.
It really is hard to be. And I know I said this at the top of our conversation, but it is one of my most favorite weekends of the year. It's the best way to kick off the summer. And it's just, you said it beautifully. I really couldn't have said it better myself. And it has been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you for our third episode of Audio Able. We hope our listeners learned something new and will consider registering for this year's event. Able United will be on site, and we cannot wait to see you all in Orlando on June 9th, 10th, and 11th. For more information, visit familycafe.net. Well, that's it for now. Have topics you'd like us to address? Interested in sharing a resource? Drop us a line at info@ableunited.com. Thanks for listening in, and we'll catch you next time on Audio Able.